What you doing in the house watching TV? It's beautiful outside. You think we live in Los Angeles for the culture?
I'm watching the Discovery Channel.
Like a bomb, the Bernie Mac show exploded onto our screens, changing the traditional family sitcom we once knew. If you've watched it, you'll agree with me that it wasn't just funny, but was a raw, honest, and not so regular type of show. But did you know that crazy stuff was happening behind the camera? From secret cameos to controversial moments, crazy off-camera moments, and absurd production choices, this list of 20 weird facts about the once popular and admired show will make you view both the show and Bernie himself from a different perspective. I guess I've done too much talking. Let's dig into it already, shall we? Number 20. The show was inspired by a real-life emergency. In a nutshell, the Bernie Mac show was not just something a group of writers dreamed up or sat down and imagined. It came straight from Bernie Mac's real life. The truth is, his sister was struggling with substance addiction, and when things got serious, Bernie stepped in and took her 3 kids into his home. And so, just like that, the funny uncle became a full-time father. No proper training, no warning, just love and responsibility. Then, that real-life twist became the heart of the show. Impressively, he didn't play a made-up character. He played himself, a man trying to figure out parenting with tough love and real talk. The kids on the show were based on the ones he raised. Vanessa's attitude, Jordan's fear, and Brianna's cuteness all came from Bernie's experience. He wasn't acting, but was living in front of the cameras. When Fox gave him the green light, he made it clear the show was going to be different. No hugs and cheesy life lessons. Instead, Bernie gave us real emotions, loud threats, and hilarious reactions. His parenting wasn't perfect, but it was powerful. He showed the world what it looked like when someone stood up for family, even when it was hard. So while we laughed at every scene, what we were watching was a man turn a personal emergency into one of the funniest and most honest shows ever made. Are you surprised, or did you already know this? Next. Number 19. The children were shielded from Bernie's stand-up specials. Bernie Mac was known for being bold and unfiltered on stage. His stand-up comedy was packed with grown-up jokes, strong language, and wild stories that had adults rolling on the floor. But when it came to the child actors on the Bernie Mac show, Bernie made one rule clear: keep the kids far away from his stand-up. Jeremy Suarez, Camille Winbush, and D.D. Davis were all minors. Bernie did not want them to hear his stage jokes or pick up his language. He wanted their performances on the show to be natural, innocent, and age-appropriate. So he asked their parents to keep them away from his comedy specials. No HBO, no DVDs, no sneaking into the back of the club. Bernie's logic was simple: kids copy what they hear. He did not want Jordan walking on set, talking about white meat, or Vanessa roasting people like a grown woman. He believed the show would only work if the kids stayed kids. So while the world laughed at Bernie's wild routines, the young actors were kept in a bubble. It worked. Their reactions felt genuine because they weren't acting like little adults. They were just being themselves. Bernie protected them the way he protected his own family. It was both funny and bright, and it showed just how seriously he took his role. Next. Number 18. Bernie broke the fourth wall because the network didn't trust the audience. When the Bernie Mac show was being developed, the network had one big question: would people understand Bernie's parenting style? He was not your average sitcom dad. He didn't speak softly. He shouted, threatened, and gave the kind of side eye that could melt steel. Fox executives were nervous. They worried viewers might think he was too harsh. So they came up with a fix. What if Bernie talked directly to the camera? What if he explained himself to the audience like they were sitting in his living room? That's how the famous scenes of Bernie talking to America were born. Initially, it was intended to help soften his image. However, it soon became the most iconic part of the show. Bernie would sit in his chair, glare at the camera, and deliver lines that were part confession, part comedy, and pure gold. He told us when he was fed up. He told us when he was about to lose it. And he told us how much he loved those kids, even when they drove him crazy. What started as a network suggestion turned into a comedy masterclass. Bernie made the audience his best friend. We were not just watching the show, we were part of it, and that fourth wall had no chance. Next. Number 17. A live audience was once considered, but quickly rejected. In the early stages of creating the Bernie Mac show, there was talk about adding a live studio audience. It was the standard for sitcoms at the time. People laugh, clap, and react to the jokes in real time. Sounds fun, right? But Bernie Mac was not feeling it. He shut it down fast. Bernie did not want fake laughter. He didn't want to pause for applause or wait for the cheering to stop. He wanted his comedy to flow naturally. More importantly, he wanted the show to feel real. A live audience would have turned his personal story into a stage act. That was not the vision. Bernie's comedy came from deep places. He talked about parenting, frustration, love, and survival. That kind of humor hits harder without a bunch of strangers laughing in the background. Bernie believed the audience at home would understand the message just fine, and he was right. Without a live crowd, the show felt more like a movie than a sitcom. It was quiet when it needed to be, it was loud when Bernie shouted, and the jokes landed without a laugh track telling us when to laugh. That choice made the show stand out from the rest. Bernie trusted the viewers, he gave us credit, and we laughed anyway, loudly. Next. Number 16. The show was filmed out of order. You would think a TV show would be filmed just like it airs. Start with episode 1, then move on to episode 2, and so on. But not on the Bernie Mac show. This show was entirely filmed out of order, and it led to some hilarious behind-the-scenes moments, especially for the kids. One day, they were filming a Halloween episode. The next day, it was Christmas. Then they were shooting an episode where someone got in trouble, even though the kids had not done anything bad yet in the previous scene. It was like time travel, but with homework and snacks on set. The adult actors could handle it. They knew how to jump into different emotions, but for the kids, it was confusing. Jordan would cry in one scene and then laugh in the next, even though both were filmed on the same day. Bernie joked that the kids had to be part actor and part detective just to keep up. Filming out of order was done to save time and money. It helped the production move faster, but it meant the cast had to stay sharp. No one could afford to forget where their character was in the story. Despite the chaos, the show came out smoothly. That's the magic of editing. What looked like a typical day on TV was filmed over 3 weeks, with 2 outfits and 5 donut breaks. Next. Number 15. Jordan was almost recast mid-season. Imagine watching the Bernie Mac show and suddenly, little Jordan has a whole new face. That almost happened. Jeremy Suarez, the lovable, high-pitched, anxiety-filled nephew who was scared of his own shadow, was nearly kicked off the show after the pilot, because some studio folks did not think he was funny enough. Yes, the same Jordan who gave us legendary one-liners and squealed in fear at every threat was almost replaced with another kid. Shame. Producers wanted someone quirkier, as if being a bug-loving, fake allergy-having, footy pajama-wearing boy was not quirky enough. They auditioned other kids behind the scenes. Sneaky, right? But Bernie Mac, being the real one that he was not having it. He believed Jeremy had that magic. He saw something in that nervous little boy and fought hard to keep him, and thank goodness he did. Jeremy grew into the role like a pro. Jordan became the official punching bag of Bernie's glares, threats, and deep sighs. No one else could have pulled off that perfect mix of fear, whining, and accidental sass. Firing him would have been a sitcom crime. So the next time you watch Jordan trembling because Bernie said he is going to bust his head, remember this: he almost did not make it past episode 1. But thanks to Bernie's loyalty, Jeremy Suarez stayed, squeaked, and uniquely stole our hearts. Next. Number 14. Jordan's squeaky voice wasn't acting. Yes, you heard that right. Jordan's squeaky, cracking, panicky little voice was not some acting trick. It was 100% real. Jeremy Suarez, the actor who played Jordan, was going through puberty while filming the show. His voice was fighting for its life. One day it was high, the next day it dipped low, and the next day it squeaked like a balloon losing air. It was chaos and it was hilarious. The producers could have freaked out. They could have told him to drink lemon tea and whisper all his lines, but instead they leaned in. They wrote his voice cracks into the scenes. So when Jordan screamed, panicked, or tried to talk back, and his voice slipped into a dog whistle, it became part of the comedy. On the other hand, Bernie Mac loved it. He thought it made Jordan even funnier. The more Jeremy's voice cracked, the louder Bernie would stare at him in disbelief. The poor boy could not win. He was scared of his uncle, scared of the world, and scared of his voice. It was pure sitcom gold. So no, there was no voice coach involved, no vocal effects. That was just Jeremy Suarez going through the most awkward phase of life in front of millions of viewers. And somehow, he made it work, because that squeaky voice of his became a part of Jordan's charm. Puberty tried to ruin him, but it made him a legend. Next. Number 13. Vanessa's eye rolls became a meme before memes existed. Before there were memes, GIFs, and TikTok reactions, there was Vanessa, and that girl's eye rolls were on another level. Camille Winbush, who played Bernie's teenage niece, did not need words to show attitude. All she had to do was cross her arms, raise one eyebrow, and roll her eyes like they were powered by teenage rage and unlimited sarcasm. You could feel the disrespect in the air. Whenever Bernie tried to give a lecture, Vanessa would roll her eyes at him. No one was safe. Not Bernie, not Wanda, not even the camera. The girl had a PhD in facial expressions. It got so intense that the editors had to cut some of them out. That is right. There were too many eye rolls to fit into one episode. The editors were sitting there thinking, okay, we already gave her 3 this week. We cannot give her 5. Nowadays, people frequently post reaction memes with eye rolls, but Vanessa was doing it before it was cool. If Twitter existed back then, she would have broken it with one look without needing a caption, don't you agree? Vanessa did not need punchlines. Her side eye could knock out an entire room. Camille Winbush turned teen attitude into an art form. Every time she rolled her eyes, the audience felt it in their soul. That is talent, that is power, that is early meme energy at its finest. You should probably watch the show if you haven't, then you'll see for yourself. Next. Number 12. Bernie's catchphrase, America, was unscripted. Bernie Mac had a lot of great lines, but nothing stuck like the way he said America whenever he was about to lose it. What most people do not know is that this now famous catchphrase was never in the script. He made it up during a rehearsal when he was tired, fed up, and trying to explain something ridiculous his TV nieces and nephews had just done. He looked into the camera, sighed deeply like a man carrying the weight of 3 children and a mortgage, and said, America, like we were his therapist. Everyone on set cracked up, the director kept it, and just like that, a catchphrase was born. America became Bernie's way of saying, can you believe this mess I am dealing with? It was a pause, a prayer, a plea for understanding, and somehow it always made us laugh. Soon it showed up everywhere, on t-shirts, in fan videos, and even in real-life arguments. People started using it to express frustration. Forgot your wallet? America. Step on gum? America. It became a whole mood. Bernie did not need to yell it or dance around it. He just said it, calm but deadly, and we knew somebody was about to get roasted. It was smooth, sharp, and all Bernie. No scriptwriters, no brainstorming, just pure unscripted Mac magic. Next. Number 11. The final season almost didn't happen. Most people are unaware that the final season of the Bernie Mac show was never fully realized. Things were getting rocky behind the scenes, ratings had dipped, Fox started getting cold feet, and worst of all, Bernie Mac was battling health issues. He was quietly struggling with sarcoidosis, a serious illness that made filming harder and harder. The network considered pulling the plug. They figured the show had run its course. But Bernie was not about to let his story end without a proper goodbye. He went to the producers and the suits upstairs and told them he needed just one more season, not for fame, not for money, but to finish what he started. They agreed. Season 5 was greenlit, and though it was not the flashiest season, it was personal. It was Bernie tying loose ends, showing growth, and giving fans closure. You could feel the shift. Bernie looked a little tired sometimes, but he never stopped delivering. His jokes still hit, his stare still cuts, and his love for those kids still warmed every scene. In a way, that final season was a gift. Bernie did not want to leave us hanging. He wanted to say thank you, and he did it in his own hilarious, heartfelt way. So the next time you watch that last episode, remember this: it almost did not exist, but Bernie Mac made sure we got one last laugh, because that is who he was, a finisher, a legend, a man who always kept his word. Next. Number 10. Bernie improvised the entire monologue. Some actors need a script, a director yelling action, and 20 takes to nail a scene. But Bernie Mac, he just needed a chair, a camera, and a reason to rant. The hilarious monologues where Bernie would talk straight to the camera, such as when he claimed America owed him child support, improvised. No script, no teleprompter, just pure Bernie energy. Producers would sit there sweating like, is he going to wing it? And then boom, Bernie drops comedy gold and parenting wisdom in the same breath. It was like watching a dad who just stepped on a Lego piece. It was raw, emotional, and weirdly educational. Sometimes he'd start with, let me tell you something, America, and by the end, you'd be ready to ground your own kids just from guilt. The monologues were so real, You felt like Bernie could actually see into your house. People would pause the show just to repeat what he said. His ability to speak from the heart made those scenes unforgettable, and since he wasn't stuck to a script, it felt like he was having an honest conversation with us. No wonder we listened. Bernie didn't play. He improvised life advice like a stand-up preacher. That chair became his pulpit, and America, we were the choir. Number 9. Real teachers called out the show's school scenes. You'd think a show like The Bernie Mac Show would get a pass when it came to classroom scenes. But no, real-life teachers were sitting at home clutching their red pens, watching those school episodes and screaming at the TV like it was a spelling bee gone wrong. Some of the school scenes were just too Hollywood for teachers to handle. One episode featured Jordan working on a project with glitter, fire, and what looked like a science fair accident waiting to happen. Teachers said, "This would never happen in my classroom unless I had already quit." Others pointed out that the grading systems were all wrong. One even said, "Who gives an A- for turning in a blank paper?" To make things even better, Bernie would sometimes show up at the school, walk straight into the classroom without signing in, and give the teacher a lecture as if he were the new principal. Some teachers loved the comedy. Others started writing letters, actual letters, on paper, with envelopes. It got that real. Of course, the show was never meant to be a school documentary, but when teachers start fact-checking sitcoms during lunch breaks, you know you've stirred the chalkboard. Still, even with all the complaints, most agreed on one thing. Bernie's heart was in the right place. His methods, well, they were probably against district policy. Number 8. The producers were forced to tone down Bernie's language. Let's just say Bernie Mac had a colorful vocabulary. In real life, his language could make a sailor clutch his pearls. So, when Fox decided to bring Bernie to television, the first meeting probably started with, "We love your work, but about those words you use." In his stand-up routines, Bernie never held back. He told the truth in a raw and spicy manner. But network TV had rules, big rules, like no cussing, no threats to knock kids into outer space, and definitely no saying what he wanted to say when Vanessa rolled her eyes. So what did producers do? They gave Bernie the classic sitcom filter. He could still yell, but now he had to yell in PG. Instead of telling America what he'd do to a misbehaving child, he'd say something like, "Bust them in the head to the white meat," and somehow made that sound both hilarious and oddly loving. But Bernie never lost his edge. He just found clever ways to say what he meant without making the censors faint. Fans loved it. Kids feared it. And Fox? They breathed a sigh of relief every time he didn't use the F word. The show taught us something important. You can still scare a child straight and make the whole country laugh, even if you keep it clean. Next. Number 7. Mac's wardrobe was from his real closet. Bernie Mac didn't need a stylist. He was the stylist. When you saw Bernie walk across the screen in those crisp suits, shiny shoes, and shirts that said, "I'm serious but stylish," you were basically looking inside his actual closet. That's right. The wardrobe department didn't dress Bernie. Bernie dressed Bernie. He came to set with outfits already picked out, ironed, and ready to cause fashion envy. Producers eventually gave up trying to suggest anything. What was the point? You don't argue with a man who can wear a lavender suit and still threaten to bust somebody's head with dignity. Even the silk pajamas he wore in some of those bedtime scenes? Straight from home. His robe? Personal. Bernie had drip before drip had a name. And he wanted to show America that even a tough, yet loving father figure could look stylish while laying down the law. Once, a wardrobe assistant suggested that he wear jeans. Bernie looked at her like she told a clown suit. "I'm a grown man," he said. "Grown men wear slacks." And from that day on, no one brought up jeans again. His outfits weren't just clothes. They were part of the character. Flashy, confident, a little intimidating, and always one wrinkle away from a threat. Classic Bernie. Number 6. Bernie hated one episode so much that he tried to block it. You know how sometimes you take a photo and immediately want to delete it? That's how Bernie Mac felt about one episode of his own show. There was an episode, in his opinion, so bad that he asked the network not to air it. Yes, the star of the show tried to block his own show. He thought it made him look too mean. And not the funny mean we loved. He meant the viewers might call child services kind of mean. The episode involved Bernie losing his temper in a way that didn't sit right with him. He said it wasn't funny, just loud and uncomfortable, which, ironically, described many family holidays. The episode was deemed acceptable by the producers, and the studio agreed as well, but Bernie felt it wasn't true to the heart of the show. He wasn't trying to play a villain. He was a strict uncle with love in his heart and a belt nearby. The network aired it anyway, but Bernie never got over it. To this day, fans still debate which episode it was. Some say it was the one where he almost gives up on parenting. Others say it's the one where Jordan cried so much it became a sound effect. Either way, Bernie's reaction proved how much he cared. This wasn't just comedy, it was personal. Number 5. The show won a Peabody Award, and nobody knew why. When The Bernie Mac Show received a prestigious Peabody Award in 2002, everyone from the cast to the audience blinked in confusion. The Peabody Awards are usually reserved for highbrow documentaries, groundbreaking journalism, or deeply emotional dramas. You know, the type of content that leaves you sobbing or questioning the government. But Bernie Mac, with his no-nonsense parenting style, his brutal honesty, and that time he threatened to bust a child's head until the white meat showed, the Peabody Board, in their official announcement, praised the show for pushing the boundaries of the sitcom genre and delivering a fresh, honest depiction of African-American family life, which sounds classy, but most fans just remembered Bernie yelling at America through the camera and threatening Jordan every week. Not exactly what you'd expect on a list next to a CNN war report or a PBS special on climate change. The cast was stunned too. According to one writer, when the news came in, they assumed it was a typo. Bernie himself reportedly said, "Peabody? Isn't that the dog with the glasses?" But beneath the jokes and the confusion, the award made sense. The show broke the mold. It ditched the laugh track, looked straight into the camera, and told uncomfortable truths about family, responsibility, and tough love. It made people laugh, but it also made them think, especially about parenting in Black households, and what it meant to raise someone else's kids as your own. So while the trophy sat next to awards that honored international crises and political exposés, the Bernie Mac Show proudly stood its ground. It may have confused a few folks, but it earned its place in television history with grit, heart, and just a little bit of white meat talk. Number 4. Wanda was almost played by Aisha Tyler. Imagine Aisha Tyler playing Bernie's no-nonsense wife. Wild, right? Before Kalita Smith snagged the role of Wanda, the producers considered casting Aisha Tyler. She was tall, witty, and definitely had the chops. However, something didn't quite click. Tyler herself later admitted that she was almost too tall for Bernie, which would have made some scenes look like Bernie was arguing with a basketball player. The chemistry during auditions just didn't land, and the producers knew this show needed a believable couple. So, Kalita Smith brought the sass, the eye rolls, the fierce love, and the ability to look Bernie in the eye and shut him down with one sentence. Resultantly, fans instantly believed her as the strong and grounded force balancing Bernie's chaos. Aisha Tyler went on to do great things elsewhere, including voicing Lana on Archer and cracking jokes on Whose Line Is It Anyway? But somewhere in an alternate sitcom universe, there's a very different Bernie Mac show with a very tall Wanda and a whole lot of neck strain. Thankfully, we got the version with Kalita Smith holding it down and keeping Bernie from turning their house into a stand-up stage. Next. Number 3. There was almost a crossover with Malcolm in the Middle. Imagine Bernie Mac storming into the chaotic kitchen of Malcolm's house, demanding silence from those wild boys while Malcolm stares into the camera like, who invited him? Believe it or not, that almost happened. Yep, the Bernie Mac Show and Malcolm in the Middle came dangerously close to a crossover that would have melted the TV screen with all that fourth wall breaking. Both shows aired on Fox, both had brilliant, quirky storytelling, and both were breaking the sitcom mold in their own way. So someone somewhere in the big shiny office of television magic thought, why not throw them together? The plan was simple. Bring Bernie and the kids into Malcolm's universe for a special episode that would leave viewers laughing, crying, and possibly confused. But the idea hit a wall fast. For starters, the two shows had completely different energies. Malcolm in the Middle was already a circus of dysfunction. Adding Bernie Mac's tough love to that mix would have turned it into a full-blown riot. Additionally, there was debate over who would receive more screen time, what the plot would be, and how to blend the two storytelling styles without creating a mess. In the end, the idea was quietly dropped, possibly filed under too wild for TV. Still, fans today wonder what that crossover might have looked like. Would Bernie have laid down the law on Reese? Would Dewey have ended up adopted by Bernie and Wanda? One thing's for sure. If that crossover had happened, it would have been legendary. But now we're left with just the dream. However, if it ever happened, would you have watched a Malcolm Meets Bernie episode? Or do you think it would have been too much awesomeness, if that's a word, for one screen? Next. Number 2. Bernie Mac's laugh was a sound cue. Bernie Mac had a laugh that deserved its own credit in the show's opening. It was loud, rich, and perfectly timed. But what fans didn't realize is that Bernie's laugh wasn't just a personal reaction to something funny. It became an actual sound cue for the audience, almost like a signal that said, "Go ahead, you're allowed to laugh now." Writers and editors quickly grasped this natural rhythm. Bernie had a way of stopping, arching his brow, letting the moment linger, and then, without warning, bursting out laughing. It was so consistent and charming that the crew started building scenes around it. They knew if Bernie laughed, the audience would follow without hesitation. Sometimes he would break the fourth wall, look directly at the camera, and chuckle at something ridiculous Jordan had just done. Other times he would laugh at his own rage, especially when baby girl asked for something outrageous. Either way, when Bernie laughed, you could practically hear viewers across America laughing with him in sync. Sound designers often emphasize that the laugh just slightly during editing, not to exaggerate it but to spotlight it like a guiding light in a sea of chaos. They knew it carried power. It was never fake or forced. Bernie didn't laugh unless it truly landed. In some sitcoms, a laugh track tells you what to feel. In The Bernie Mac Show, it was Bernie himself. His laugh became a natural part of the show's rhythm. It was a comedic drumbeat that led the charge, and once you heard it, you never forgot it. Even years after the show ended, fans still hear that laugh echo in their minds whenever life gets too serious. Next. Number 1. Bernie was diagnosed with sarcoidosis while filming. Behind the laughter, Bernie Mac was fighting a very real battle. During the early seasons of the show, he was diagnosed with sarcoidosis, a rare disease that causes inflammation in the body, particularly the lungs. It can affect any organ, and it often leaves patients with fatigue, difficulty breathing, and serious complications. For Bernie, who gave his all in every scene, this diagnosis was a quiet storm brewing behind the scenes. He didn't want fans to see him as weak or sick, he just wanted to make people laugh. So he kept filming, even when he was tired, even when it hurt. The cast and crew often said he never let it show. He remained funny, passionate, and full of life, even as his body battled an invisible illness. It makes you look at every episode in a different light. The man we saw cracking jokes and yelling "America" was quietly facing a disease that eventually contributed to his early demise in 2008. He left a legacy of laughter, but also a reminder that even the strongest faces on TV carry burdens we may never see. So now that you know the truth, we'll leave you with this question. How many other legends do you think laugh through pain just to make us smile? Let us know in the comments. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more entertaining and informative content. We look forward to seeing you in our next video.